real quick, apparently many of you know our speaker tonight, Don Riley. Just real quick, Don Riley was supervisor from 1973 to 1989. The modern history of the town from approximately 1960 to today is, and I'm going to share why I think it's very, very worth writing, essaying, saving, documenting. It was a dynamic and is a dynamic period in our community.
The following is a production of the Greece Historical Society.
Second Tuesday Stories Exploring Our Past, presented by the Greece Historical Society, are sponsored by members of the Greece Historical Society and our advertisers in the newsletter.
The space for the event is provided by the Greece Public Library. Please support your local library.
A contemporary history of the town of Greece with former town supervisor Don Riley from 1973 to 1989. Recorded Tuesday, January 13th, 2026.
Welcome, everyone. They haven't been here before. We are the Greece Historical Society. We've been around the neighborhood since 1969.
Oh, thank you.
Just want to let you know that
Thank you.
just published a new book, Pioneer Families of Greece. If you're interested, we're selling it on the back of the room. And our next program next month is called She Unsung 2. This is a program we had last year with two retired college professors who study women, and they were to talk about a number of women who have made a great contribution to the Rochester area, but you've probably never heard of them. So if you're interested in women's history and local history,
What am I doing? My stomach is jumping around like
and we
a
did want to announce that like last year, we're offering a $2,000 scholarship to a College senior who is going into history or education. And they can find our application from their school counselor or our website, or I have a copy because I know there's no high school seniors here. Lots of seniors. Real quick, apparently many of you know our speaker tonight, Don Riley. Just real quick, Don Riley was supervisor from 1973 to 1989. And during that time, we had about 1,000 people a year moving into the town of Greece. Is that about right, Don?
Mostly Republicans. Not true.
One of the great things he did,
Not true.
he bought 80 acres of land right where we are today for our future. And he also convinced Bob Whiteman to move that old house.
Very good.
And abandoned it for a number of years to give it to the Greece Historical Society. So we appreciate that. But I wanted to have a proper introduction to Don. So I'm going to introduce our new supervisor, Jeff McCann.
Whoa.
Will introduce.
Whoa.
Thank you, Bill. Right, you can hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. Before I get started, let me introduce two of my colleagues from the Greece Town Board. We're joined by First Ward Councilman David DePonzio, who's here. And then also Second Ward Councilman Spencer Bernard. So, Bill mentioned to me it was probably over a month ago, that this was going to happen, and asked me if I would be willing to introduce Don Riley. And boy, it didn't take me very long to say yes. I got the date, and I had to be here. Don Riley is one of my favorite people. He always gets mad when I point this out, but I first met Don when I was in high school. And I like to tell him that's what happens when you get elected when you're 24 years old. You're not that much older than the people who are in high school. So, Don, I went to Greece Olympia. Don was at Olympia. I don't know why he was there. He was really the first elected official that I ever met. And, Don, right, there was something, well, actually, I'm sure everybody here knows Don, right? Don, there was just something special about Don. He looked like he could have been one of the fifth Beatles, right? He looked he had a dynamic personality. He was just a great guy. And, now looking back at this, you stop and think, I haven't been speaking to anybody in high school yet, any kids, or I had that opportunity yet. But, a lot of people in my profession would say, geez, why would you go to a high school? Those are kids that aren't going to be able to vote for you. They're, by the time they vote, you're going to be gone. But I have a different perspective, because when I was in high school, I met Don, and Don was really an inspiration to me. And again, to be able to see someone in local government that you could actually see, talk to, have a conversation with, really was an inspiration for me, and something that really helped. I've always had an interest in government and politics, but knowing Don, seeing Don really helped push me in that direction. Bill just said how Don purchased the property that we're on. So we're literally here today because of Don Riley. And, I mentioned Don at the swearing in service ceremony that we had 10, 12 days ago. And, Don really is one of those leaders who planted a tree that he would never enjoy the shade of, in terms of actually being there, right? You think about how long ago he bought that property, and it took a while for the town to figure out a way to do this. And, that saying, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Actually, I had to Google it to see who said that. That was Sir Isaac Newton. And I really feel like that on a level that what the town of Greece has been, thanks to the contributions of Don being a visionary to purchase this land. He was then followed by a very close friend of his, Roger Boyley, who was able to find a way to finance this through MuniPro and leasing property, so it wasn't a real strain on the tax base to do that. And unfortunately, in our line of work, there aren't a lot of people who are willing to do that. And again, I'm grateful and I'm thankful for the opportunity to serve our community as supervisor, and really my goal is to do a job as well as I can. And again, Don is an inspiration for me, and I know a lot of us in government. I know Spencer had Don swear him in at the ceremony we had. So Don, you've touched a lot of people here, and I just want to thank you, and it's my honor and privilege on behalf of the town of Greece to introduce you here tonight.
Thank
so
you. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Yes, absolutely.
That was very
Absolutely.
nice. Thank you.
There we go. Okay.
What Jeff failed to tell you is we're reading partners. And we're waiting for the 5th edition on LBJ. 4,000 pages of LBJ, and we're waiting and waiting and waiting. I'm having an out-of-body experience standing in front of you tonight. Let me just start by, I do have to recognize a few folks who got me here tonight. Reva, my companion, partner, and wife for 44 years. My brother, this is in no order except Reva. My brother Bob is here. Where the hell have you been? I had a heart attack. You didn't call. You didn't visit me. You didn't write me notes. Bobby and I went to St. John Fisher College together. Bob was heading for the priesthood. Didn't quite make it, but he was in Honduras in the Peace Corps. And the story in our house was when I was in the White House, and I had the occasion a couple of times to have meetings there. I was in the White House. Bobby was outside protesting the White House. So we have a very, very, very liberal, conservative, Republican, Catholic, Jewish, Presbyterian. We got a great mix. It goes without saying I would not be standing here tonight or any place if it wasn't for the next young man that I'm going to introduce. Jim Coddington saved my life November 7th, a day that will go down in infamy. Jimmy and I hike, as many thousands of people do, on the Beatty Trail, named after a real old family that had a house at one point up on the top overlooking Buck Pond. And the Beatty Trail was put in when they were going to build a golf course, when they built the Parkway. Some of you remember that there was a design for a full 18 holes of golf. And as that abated, back in 1970, Governor Carey reached out to us through Roger Robach first, and then Roger called me and said, they're going to close the park at Braddock Bay. Now, most people think of Braddock Bay Park as the Little Day area. I call Bill Riley Bill the Builder. Bill the Builder put up a new pavilion. We built the original year-round pavilion. Dennis Klopper, a gentleman, a philanthropist to this community, who gave ambulances, built the kitchen and finished that off. So I said, don't close it. We'll cut the grass and empty the refuse. Our people in Greece need that park. It's a beautiful park. 2 weeks later, the governor's office reaches out and said, do you want it? And I thought, well, sure. Yeah, nice day area. With a stroke of a pen, and I have the pen someplace, I'll see if I can find it for you, Bill. Governor Carey signed over from the state of New York to the town of Greece 2,000 acres of wetlands and uplands that included not only the park, not only all of Beatty Point, but the marina. Boom, with a stroke of a pen. Not to get too excited, DEC flipped out. DEC was going all over New York State buying wetlands. And rightfully so, we should preserve them. Lo and behold, right underneath DEC's nose, Governor Carey gives the town of Greece 2,000 acres of I consider them the best wetlands, along the south shore of Lake Ontario. So out of that came, well, anyway, we're hiking, and I had a bad feeling. I was feeling bad, and my 85-pound lab was running around. And so I started heading back to the car. It's across from the former best restaurant in Monroe County, Bernard's Grove, or Bernard's. And I never made it. So down on the ground, apparently I go. Jim Coddington comes along with his dog, Leah. Leah and our dog, Patty, are very tight. They're good buddies. Within 64 seconds, Lakeshore was there with their trucks, their oxygen, their team, and then the ambulance was there, and off we went to Strong. That was 3 stents. About a week ago, I'm feeling not really good. I go back to Strong. I now have 4. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here all night. You have no idea how thrilled I am to be here tonight. We also have in our presence Joan Korsh, the first woman ever elected to the Greece Town Board. Joan, congratulations. Joan came on the town board when I left the town board in 1989. And Jeff understands this, as do our town board members, David and Spencer. There has to be a vacancy. So we tricked Roger Boyley into resigning his town board seat. And then I had to resign so that there was a vacancy. So he resigned, and then I had to vote to appoint. I got to vote for Joan's appointment. After we appointed Joan, I said, I think I've changed my mind. I'm not going to resign. That scared the hell out of Roger momentarily. But Joan has done a commendable job as our first lady legislator. There are many of you in this crowd tonight that wonder what in God's holy world I'm up to. And the purpose of tonight is to give you a general outline of an approach I'm taking towards writing a book on the modern history of the town. The modern history of the town from approximately 1960 to today is, and I'm going to share why I think it's very, very worth writing, essaying, saving, documenting. It was a dynamic and is a dynamic period in our community. Town of Greece broke off from Gates and Ogden in 1821. Fred Amato was a kid then. Everybody said, Greece is a Republican town. Excuse me, Fred Amato, Roger Robach, Ralph Quattrachaki, Joe, who were those guys? This town is a thinking, we pick and choose. We really do. You may not agree with it when it's all said and done, but our community are stand-up folks who kind of call them as they see them. And we've never been a Republican town. Reeve and I would pace the floors every election night. People say, why? I said, if all those people that are mad at me go out, I'm in trouble. So we're a very diverse town. And as the town developed, much like the country, Long Pond Road was for so many years the Mississippi. It was the dividing line. The farms, our rural area, the Mays Hotel, great ham sandwiches, were west of us. Everything else was east of us. And so in the years since I've been retired and reflecting on this, I was looking for that. When I first was elected, it was, by the way, 1972 by one day. And here's the one day. If they didn't appoint me that day, the new town board would have never appointed me. Joe Darwish was coming on board. He would not have voted for me, although we're become dear friends. I think he would today. So it was technically 72, but by a day. Technicality. So as the town developed, as those thousands of homes were built, an awful lot else was going on. And I spent some time a year ago. I met with Gene Preston. I met with Kathy Groutman. Jerry Phelan is 91 or 92 years old. I've spent some time talking to him about the development of things like the institutions that we know. And we were going so fast as a community in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and 10s and 20s. that no one could take a breath to chronicle this. And I want to chronicle some of it. I was a history major in college because you had to have a major. You went to Fisher, did you not, Jeff?
No.
Why not?
I wasn't
Why
smart
not?
enough.
Pardon me?
I went to Buff State.
Riva, there's an alum.
All right. But you went there for teaching, right? So
You had to have a major. In 1965, you'd go in and they'd say, well, what's your major? I don't know, what's a major? Now you get counseling, you have SATs, you have Kaplan, you have take it again, take the one on the right, blah, 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 blah. We just kind of went for it. So I thought history sounded cool. You know, history, English, history, philosophy. So I was used to 4 years of cranking out paper after paper after paper when given an assignment. In fact, to this day, over the years I've been out at Fisher a lot for different things. I have a reoccurring nightmare. I don't have enough credits to graduate. I don't know if any of you have had those. The other one is I owe somebody a paper. Now, we had typewriters and write and white out and oh my God, and spilled the coffee and put it in upside down. To this day, I would give anything to go back with a laptop. And A1, woo-hoo-hoo, A1, that would have been great. But I decided to try and outline that kind of an approach towards the history of our town. And I've reflected on what I consider to be some of the major institutions in our community and underpin it with the personalities, some of whom are still with us or their family members are still with us, that could bring that to us and write about it. You know, I'll use the restaurant, the Grove, as an example. We grew up knowing it as the Grove. Well, you guys put it on the map. It was a local saloon, but you made it an incredible restaurant. One of the best. I mean, when you see the hoo-ha's from the east side coming over to dine, hoo-ha is a word, I don't even know how to spell it, but it sounds cool. You understand. So you created something. We all paint, and I know Jeff is committed, as I know board members are, especially Dave and others, to doing something with the Crescent Beach. It's not just a building. It's something. It's Greece. We went there for proms and weddings and different stuff. So that's part of some of the things I've been reflecting on. When I took over in the early 70s, a lot of the major mall rezonings were already in place. Our succeeding boards had already rezoned the Clem Turkey Farm, which some of you may recall. I think it also had a crucifix up on the front lawn. That had become the malls. And the malls, and then the second mall was Long Ridge. So you had Sibley's fighting McCurdy's, and they weren't even connected. Do you know that either one of them could have closed the access off? I didn't get the access back until one of the malls needed something from the town. And I said, well, what we need is we need to hold the connection between the two. You can't ask people to drive around the block to go from Sibley's to McCurdy's. That has to be, in some ways, chronicled. Also, during that same period, 20,000 residents of the town of Greece during the 60s and 70s and into the 80s drove across Ridge Road every day to go to Kodak and back. So, Youngtown Supervisor, brilliant, I got an idea. So I went down to the Regional Transit Authority. I didn't even know where it was. And I talked to the executive director. He should have been nice to me because I succeeded him a few years later. And I said, why not run buses, like one bus after the other, all day, up and down Ridge Road. In the off hours, people could use it, but good Lord, you got 20,000. And then the malls could do park and ride. He patted me on the head, said, nice idea, and that was that. He should have been nice to me. But it was those kinds of things, and Jeff, I'm sure, is beyond more than capable of doing it with he's got a great town board, wonderful town board. So I'm going to quickly outline what I have in mind and some of the work that's done. But this really is going to be dependent. And by the way, the Edgewater was an institution too, Patty. There's Patty. Patty and her mom and dad.
My grandmother ran that in 1920.
Pardon me?
My grandmother ran that hotel.
I don't care. I'm talking about Patty. Yeah, it was a speakeasy in the. Yeah, I know. By the way, the Historical Society, Ann Wegman is there. Where's Ann? Ann Wegman, I'm going to out Ann. I'm outing Ann Wegman. Ann Wegman is Phil Wegman's wife, the mother of 9 Wegman kids. Jay is the most prominent recently, and he's redeveloped Elmridge. Oh my God, is that rocking and rolling? But the Wegmans, these are not immediate relatives of the Wegmans, but her father-in-law, Ed, did all the real estate for Bob Wegman, his cousin. So if you took a map of Monroe County and wanted to pick a spot for a grocery store, a big one, even if there was nothing on it, Ed Wegman had already tied it up for Bob Wegman. That's how far and advanced, and may I use the word progressive, Wegmans was. But Ann reminded me that I have one of her children. They had a litter of puppies, and Phil called up and said, Don, would you come over and either take a kid or a puppy?
Where is Ann?
And we took beloved Phil, and we named him Phil after Phil. 16 years. Anyway, Ann, so nice to see you and all that goes with it. The Historical Society has done a wonderful job. It had no home. We had a little house near Basil Morella Park, and that was after Ginny. We had Ginny in parts of the old town hall, which could have been a haunted house, right? But Ginny Tomkowitz, wonderful lady, kept going with keeping the history together. And Ann's brother-in-law, Ed, Dave, was working for Wegmans when they were building the new Wegmans at Latta and Long Pond. And I could do an hour, maybe sometime in the future, on Northampton, but Wegmans I don't have to tell you, is an awesome entity. Some neighbors have some concerns, but when I tell you, when you ask them to do something, they do it, and they do it twice. Anyway, I asked Dave, what are you doing with the Howe House? Because the Historical Society had approached us. And he said, we're going to demolish it. And I said, well, can you not demolish it until I get back to you? And of course, towns and historical societies, we don't have any money for anything. And so I said, Dave, see if Bob and the powers that be will tolerate not knocking it down. Well, yeah, but we got to move it. I said, okay. Got back to the Historical Society, to town. We don't have any money to move it. It's not cheap to move an older home or a new home. Not cheap, like lots of money. So I said, Dave, can you help us out with a kind of little bit of help? Not only did Wegmans move it, they get it going down Long Pond Road. I said, can you help us out with building a foundation? So they did. So that's a tribute to Wegmans, God bless them. And I don't know whether Bob knew it, but Dave got it done. Dave Wegman, you can thank Dave Wegman for getting that done. And it was, as Bill has pointed out, the first structure on the Snell farm. Snells were two not twins, but brothers. They became ill and they were institutionalized and passed away. And their nephew came to see me at town hall. And he said, Dad, that's the beauty of a town. You know, we have 100,000 people, but people come in. He said, are you interested in the land before we put it on the market? I said, sit right down. And that's where bipartisanship comes in. Bill Casey and Joe Darwish were on the town board, 2 Democrats, wonderful folks. And 5-0, buy it, buy it, buy it. So I get credit for it. They deserve it. We put the terms together so that the relative could take the benefit of it. I'll go to my grave telling you how much we paid for it. Not a lot of money compared to the value of land today. So that was very, very fortunate. Okay, in the 1960s, growing up as I was, as many of you were, I was privileged to have our dad serve on the town board with Gordon Howe. And he had John O'Shaughnessy, who was a Democrat, was on the town board, and Frank McComb, and a few others. And I remember should have been studying, but I was paying attention to my dad talking about subdivision regulations and sidewalks and lighting districts and all of that. And they must have spent a considerable amount of time working on those elements, on sewers, and on it went. That's an area that it's a good starting point. Because the town of Greece is so unique because of those districts and public improvement districts, never inadvertently shrinking away from taking on responsibilities. So the 60s, I'm going to have to really do some digging. When I first became supervisor, I once a month or so, I had lunch with a guy named Gordon Howe. And Gordon Howe, I picked his brain because he was there for years before us and knew some of them. Our dad had passed away. So I needed to dig. There was a guy named John Babbitt who was the chairman of the planning board, and I picked his brain. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Now, I got to be candid. In the 60s, they did rezonings at 2 o'clock on Friday afternoons without notice. All right? There was some wheeling and dealing going on. But most of it was pretty good. Most of it turned out okay. But Gordon and John Babbitt and Fran Beatty and these old timers were unbelievable in giving me background information that I would have never been able to gather and be helpful. Part of the reason for, I think, writing a book on our modern history is based on several major institutions or areas. First one is somewhat selfishly governmental. Police, fire, ambulance, those are each an institution into themselves. The history of our fire service is remarkable and long-standing, in some cases outdistancing many other. And so I reached out initially to a living expert on it, Gene, and it's my hope that when we complete this tome, that it will tell the story economically on the history of all of the fire departments and where we are sort of at today. Written so that people's names are in there that we should remember that we may have forgotten tonight. Pay tribute to those that are tribute. Nothing gushy, but let me tell you, the fire departments reached out governmentally to me and Reva. We went to, there were 4 or 5 dinners a year. And we went to all of them. And man, I'll tell you, we are so lucky. The Barnet Exempts, their festival, that was a happening. We had a lady come to town board that wanted us to not give them a permit to have the Barnard Fire Department annual event. I said, what? Do you realize that pays for the ambulance? Well, I said, well, that was $80,000, $90,000. But there are stories like that. So we're going to see if we can discipline ourselves to write the history, but also get some anecdotes in there that should stay. Some good and some bad. Apparently, a lot of the equipment, stainless steel pots and pans that were used for clam making may have had their origin at the Eastman Kodak Company. Just maybe.
Rich Hardware, it was called.
The big yellow hardware store on Lake Avenue. But anecdotally, we'll have some fun with them. Police, fire, and ambulance. When I became supervisor, I grew up at our dad's knee, and I used to love going to Barnard, over to Barnard where the parade started, and look at Chief Carter's gun. I just stood there looking at that. He had a big pistol. There's a park named after Chief Carter. Wonderful guy, wonderful, wonderful guy. But when I became supervisor, we had 22 police officers, and we were in the basement of Town Hall. That was the police department. Also in the basement was the engineering department, a little kitchen, a little meeting room, and the building department. Talk about economic space, right? So we brought Jerry in, and Jerry is a organizational genius. And I started with 22. When I left, we had 89. So during that 17 years, and we kept cranking and cranking and cranking. And our theory was response time, response time, response time. You have 52 square miles. Town of Greece and Disneyland are the same size. Many ways, just as nice. We had 9 sectors, and there was a car in every sector. So that when you called, it shouldn't be more than minutes wait, not 10 minutes, not we'll call you back. We kind of were very nervous about 911. We were very skeptical. We didn't want to lose, that direct connection between somebody's breaking in my door. Besides that, there are a lot of other elements. And so I've reached out to Jerry, and there'll be other police officers that will bring us up to date. We've had some great chiefs. I don't know the current chief well, but we'll get there. We'll get enough information so that there's a nice history of it. The commercial history of the town, you could write 100 books on. Kodak drove us. Kodak exploded the town of Greece. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of building permits and subdivisions and all that goes with it. What else came? Schools. So the commercial end still with us and young enough to have been there and witnessed a lot of it is Tom Wilman. I've talked to Tom. I know Tom very well, and I'm gonna want those companies may have histories, but I don't want marketing. I want histories. So his dad Jim, who I had the privilege of interacting with, was a terrific guy. But so there'll be that. We'll go at that big time. Danny Wegman and I went to grammar school together, as did other kids who went to Mother of Sorrows. Danny lived next to the Assembly of God Church. That's their house. That's where Danny grew up, went to Mother of Sorrows, and I still see him, and it's like nothing, no time has passed, but a lot has passed with them. But Danny'd be important because he can remember Bob. And Bob married, his first wife was Mary Beamish, whose family lived across the street where the funeral parlor is now. And the Beamish family, and so there was a direct connection there, but Bob, and I know this only, Ann, because your father-in-law, Ed, told me this. If you look at the stone on the Wegman house next to the Assembly of God Church, it has a real similarity to the stone on the bridges over the parkway. Because Bob bought the excess stone when they were building the bridges to build his house. It's either the truth or they were pulling my leg, and I'm not sure which. It could very well be. But Danny was, believe me, more deeply involved. And I think he'd be happy. I know you had Wegman speak to the Historical Society, and I'm going to want to hook up with them and then pick them apart a little bit. Okay? I know you can help me with that, Bill. Educational. Some of the kids went to Marshall. Some of our kids went to Charlotte, Spenceport, who knows where, and then Olympia. Yay, where's green and gold? Where's the Olympia? Come on. Do you have any cheers you can do? Huh? I went to Olympia for algebra one summer. I'm an alum. Dan Doran taught me. Yep, I'm an alum. But the educational institution's profound influence on the history, the modern history of the town, in so many ways. And Catherine was there long enough. Dave Robinson, I'm told, is still alive, and he's living at the Villages. So I'm going to reach out to Dave. I don't want to scare him. I'll go slowly. I don't want to scare the poor guy. But Dave Robinson and the town of Greece, while I was there, were joined at the hip. We had 19 playgrounds on school sites. And thus we cut the grass and maintained. That was our barter. We were bartering years ago. But Dave and I would talk in the middle of wintry nights when he and I at 2 o'clock, we'd make the call whether he could open the schools the next day. I'd be on the phone with Bill Kentz, terrific Commissioner of Public Works. Bill would always say, I said, Bill, tell me the truth. We don't want to send school buses. He said, no, we're okay. But we had counseling programs intact year-round. Frank Ardino set up counseling programs. We reached out. And so the school district and the town were joined at the hip. And I hope that Jeff has that same relationship with the school district. They're a resource, but they close in June, and we're open year-round. So we need to, but anyway, we're going to write about that. A lot of the continuing education programs that we've all enjoyed were started by Basil Morella as a recreation program, and then the school district picked it up. So instead of fighting over turf, we said, great, and we fed it. I used to campaign outside of continuing ed. I got an apple pie one night. I got a couple other things, but the educational involvement in all of our districts is remarkable. Our religious institutions are beyond historic. The age of Mother of Sorrows Church and some of the earliest, beyond historic. I was talking to my brother Eddie today, and he's convinced that he and Tom Studley in the basement of the old church discovered the Underground Railroad tunnel. But that's for another day. But we do have history there. And you've covered a lot of it with your original families and all that. I want to take the modern period from the 60s on. The building of the new Church of Mother of Sorrows, the incredible development of the Assembly of God and George Grace and his churches. At one time, George and his group wanted to build a college, if not a seminary. And we talked about it. I listened to any idea that came our way. But our religious institutions continue, certainly in the 60s, 70s, 80s. I think there's some transitioning going on, but I think it should be certainly a pivotal part of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Because at one point, Mother of Sorrows, we had a couple thousand families. The Dugans had one family, they had 9. It was the Clarks. Park Ridge Hospital. If that shouldn't be the focus of some history, nothing should. Ed Wegman keeps coming up. That Ed Wegman guy keeps coming up, doesn't he? Ralph DiStefano, Fred Strauss, a banker, Ray Tobin, who served on our town board. That was the original little gang that said, we need a hospital, and they literally went out and bought a hospital. They bought Park Avenue or whatever it was called, hospital. Ed Wegman tied up all the land before before anything was nailed down. But that's a beautiful history in and of itself. Vice President Rockefeller came to dedicate it on the day that Squeaky Fromm tried to shoot President Ford. At the same time, all of a sudden the radios are crackling and we're standing out there, and I happen to be sitting next to the vice president. Ralph was on the other side, and I said, boy, I hope they're going to kill him. I hope they're a good shot. You know, I don't want to get shot. But the health, we all remember running over to North Side. Go to North Side. Woo! Here we go. But once Park Ridge came along, I know some of us were dismayed that the first thing they built was a nursing home, but the rest is, I had a knee replaced a few years ago at Unity, and it's arguably one of the best. Now it's part of a big organization. Now it's part of Northside, and then some. But health, the story of health in the town could also be related to how much our eleemosynary groups help out with food and raising of food and feeding food, taking care of our kids. I'm privileged, I can't get there, but I'm privileged to belong to Rotary, and I know Kiwanis and others. We have a real mission. A lot of kids who would be hungry or without are in our town. And that's okay because we're a big, big town. If you're ever wondering about towns, I do all the time. You probably don't at all. There's 936 towns in New York State. 936 towns. We are the largest town in the state that doesn't have a village in it. Fred Amato stole Shalat. In 1916, Kodak went zoom and annexed all of a chunk of Kodak and all the way down, taking our beloved village Shalat. But Fred saved the lighthouse. And they went down through Arundecoit and did the same thing. They had the right to create a port, access to the port. For doing that, they had to educate our kids, thus the free school districts. And that lasted until 1974, when the state was abolishing school districts because the sitting school districts like Greece Ridge and others were losing counting those little kids. And Roger Robach and Fred Eckert brought the legislation and abolished it. So be it. But I want Shalott back. And then our lighthouse would be in town, Fred. You should know Fred Amato has had great leadership. He was a pain in the ass when he was a county legislator. Not really. Great leadership in enhancing and preserving the Shalott Lighthouse. Our very symbol. Nothing greater than that. So nice job, Fred. I don't put these in any kind of specific order. I put government down because I was just clicking away. But the rest, and there may be others, and there may be other people that I have missed, or you should let me know about. I've asked Bill to take a listing of your email if you'd like to. I will not. Oh, is it? I won't sell it right away. But I do want to get my wife, secretary / nurse, will she'll get me organized. I love to read. I wasn't such a good reader until after college, where I had to read stuff. But I read, and the one book of history. What does it read? The Clan of the Cave Bear. If you haven't read the Clan of the Cave, how many? 4 books? 5 books? Yeah, there's 5. It's fiction, but it's so cool. We're not quite that far back, but we need to go forward. So 60 gets the guys who really laid the foundation for subdivisions and stuff like that. And the 70s and 80s, I call it the golden years. Nobody else does, but I do. The 90s, again, the dynamism. Jeff swearing in, Jack Auberger and Bill Lilac and I sat together, and when you're off the field, everybody gets along very, very well. And everybody's got strengths and weaknesses, but they've all contributed, and can't do a thing without 4 members of the town board. So anything that is attributed to the town while I was there was 5 votes, not 1. And that's as it should be. Now I'm going to kind of conclude there and really hopefully take some questions or thoughts or ideas, or did I miss something? Oh, I got to tell you, there was this one hotshot reporter from Channel 13 who was there just a few years, and he came out. Gannett, anybody here from Gannett? They hated us. The only time they covered us is when there was something bad happening. They didn't cover any of the stuff that I've talked about, and we were doing recycling in the early 70s. Greece was, not Mendon, not Pittsburgh, Greece. We were doing recreational things unheard of. We were doing all kinds of things. Our budget process that Bob Fry developed was adopted all over New York State. I'll tell you one example of Gannett. And by the way, I'm close with the retired editor, Karen. Karen and I are friends. I was asked to meet with President Reagan with 2 other supervisors from around the country, 3 of us. Go to the White House. Yeah. I didn't ask to go. The National Association of Towns did. And so we met with President Reagan, and it was on new federalism. And New Federalism was his effort. He wanted to push the money down to the states and down to the local governments rather than hand it out in grants. And we favored that. Federal revenue sharing was unattached. You could use it for any government purpose. So we have the meeting. Next day, there's nothing in the newspaper. I mean, I was curious. Hey, nothing. So I called the newspaper, and they said, "Well, the Pope died." I said, "Yeah, but you had the bowling scores in there." Channel 13 sent a crew down there with us. But so if 8, 10, and 13 didn't exist, I wouldn't exist. Gannett would take a picture of Ridge Road parallel, at 5 o'clock. Hello, horrible, terrible Ridge Road. Ridge Road is our southern commercial area. Here we are in the center. And the Greece Post was just the opposite. You could hand them copy and they'd write it exactly the way you handed it to them. So we didn't abuse that. But Gannett was awful. They one time slammed us on a Sunday about turning down a group home. And blah, 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 blah. I mean, nasty. Okay? So Monday, I said, Bob Fry and Bill Von Dolan, who I just spoke to recently, I said, not for nothing, but how many group homes do we have in Greece? And Bob came back, he said, we have 30. Not one, not two. They're slamming us for turning down a group home. We had 30. So I asked the editor for an opportunity to respond on the same page that he had. The editorial page. Oh no, that's for the editors. So that's how nasty and anti. Maybe they didn't like me. I don't know, but we had 30 group homes. We never turned down a group home, never, and we're proud of that. Neighbors were concerned. There would be a meeting, and the neighbors were concerned. Not only did we never turn one down, but neighbors formed support groups. It worked beautifully, but we must have 40 by now. We never turned one down. We did have some fights. We got into a fight with the building of English Village, and not for the reasons that people would think. In 1974, it hadn't been started. And this will be something I'll write about. And so we took an action, and it was the State Development Corporation. The state was going around saying the suburbs, we need to break up the suburbs. They're anti-black, and we can't, no low-income housing. We got to break it. So Rockefeller and the legislature passed mandatory. Not only mandatory, it overrode zoning. The fire inspectors couldn't inspect it. The building department couldn't inspect it. The roads couldn't be inspected, which is standard, just a standard approach. So we took an action in state Supreme Court, Judge Provenzano, and I actually met with him in chambers, and I said, you can write some new law. The following year, to Fred's credit, they reversed it and made it a requirement that the town could hold a public hearing. We couldn't even hold a public hearing. How many units are there in English Village apartments? Anybody know? 550.
Yeah, I think
550. Now, I wasn't against that, and I'm certainly not against giving people a chance. But let me tell you how bad they were built. The wind blows I hope it's better now, but the wind would blow through them. Electric heat. People were freezing. The people that we want to help were freezing over there. Years later, they came through and said, can the town take the road system? Well, we would take a road system if it was built to specs. They have drainage that goes underneath parking lots. I mean, it was a mess. Well, I got pillared by Gannett for being a racist because I had those questions. And that was the kind of relationship we had with Gannett. And I'm not disappointed that they've gone down the street. And Reva said, cut it off. Okay. How about questions? Thank you.
I would like to, if you have questions, comments, whatever, I'd like to bring a microphone to you. We are recording this, so everybody can hear. Anybody?
Is he ringing up there?
Is it your?
Oh, is that me?
It's you.
It might be your.
It's time to stop talking.
Oh, I set the alarm for PM instead of AM. That's never been done before. Time to get up.
Okay, let's somebody must get some kind of topic. All right, here we go.
Start up with Kathy.
Yes.
Hi, Don. My name is Kathy Perkins.
You think? How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm well. I would just like to say, as a member of the Greece Historical Society for close to 30 years now, it's wonderful to hear some of the wonderful things you're saying about us, and thank you so much for that.
This lady's daughter literally built town hall with Roger.
Daughter-in-law.
Yeah, daughter.
Yeah,
Yes, so nice to see you again.
thank you.
Lee was is Lee still with us?
Yeah.
She's been struggling.
She's been retired for 5 years now.
And my daughter Molly keeps putting this picture on Facebook of me with a bowler hat and tie with her at some historical event. I cherish all the stuff you've done, but I just want to bring us a little bit up to date because there's a great story to tell. And the other day I was listening to Bill Smith, who filled in for Bob Lonsberry. And Bill was bragging about Pittsford. I could have driven off the road. I could have driven off the damn road. I'm not kidding you. Oh, yes, we've in Pittsburgh, we have like 9 of, you got nothing. But, we also have, and maybe we get it through education, we have some incredible children or adults who've gone on to the stratosphere in medicine and sports and, science and success. I mean, 100,000 people. I mean, that's a lot. By the way, we were always undercounted. The reason for that is that cities were always overcounted. Now, listen to me here a second. Federal grants are based on population oftentimes. And so we were always 100,000 people. By the way, as a town supervisor, if you went to another supervisor meeting, by the time I got home, we had 300,000 people. We were trying, everybody brags a little bit, but I was counting houses. If we didn't have 100,000 people, houses were moving in there weren't any people in them. So I mean, come on. But you can only challenge the number if you pay for a new census, which consultants love to do. So you'd have to pay 150 or 200,000 to have a consultant say we're right. Not unlike flood districts. Flood districts, the bane of anyone who lives along the lake. The lake does not flood. They block it up. Then it floods. The lake doesn't flood. Hasn't flooded in 100 years. Hasn't flooded in 200 years. Maybe a zillion years. They plug up the end for a couple of reasons, and then up it comes. So, you know, the local government, and you're well equipped. Spencer, Dave. By the way, when Dave was sworn in by his grandfather, who was 100 years old and served in the Battle of the Bulge, that was something. That was beautiful, Dave. I didn't like you until I Jack Foy is his grandpa. How about questions? About anything.
Hey, Don, you had mentioned the Yucky Yucks coming over from the east side.
No, hoo-ha's.
Hoo-ha's.
Hoo-ha. No, hoo-ha. No, hoo-ha.
Grove.
No, hoo-ha's are okay.
Hoo-ha's, yeah.
Hoo-ha's.
But when they went to Bernard's Grove, after about, 3 cocktails, the east siders came just like us west side. Is that not good?
Okay.
No, another question. How do we buy your book?
Pardon me?
How do we buy your book?
Well, first I have to get it published. And Bill did their recent book through Amazon. I have to put some salacious stuff in there, I'll think of something. I got to tell you a quick one. When I was working for Mark IV, which I really loved, I used to go around to we built the legacy senior living communities and managed them. So I'd go around and do book reviews. And the book reviews that I picked was Water for Elephants. If you haven't read it, it's a beauty. But one of the ladies, before I started the review, came up and said, Mr. Riley, there's some really sexy stuff in this book. Now we'll get it. I think it would be a nice addition to what 8 Miles Along the Shore, that was my title. I gave it the title because I also designed a logo with a seagull called Greece is the Life. And the chamber rejected it because they said, well, it ties it up to you. I said, it ties it up to a seagull. I wanted people to know that we're a seaside community. Thus, the Northampton plan. And if I can take 5 minutes, is that okay?
Sure.
They take us out of here about 8:30, so
Okay.
10 after now.
In the 70s, Wegmans was ready to rock and roll with their new store. So I reached out to Ed, and we had acquired the land, and I said, why don't we do a plan called we called it Northampton. The reason is that's what this whole region was called, Northampton. Everybody has their version of it, but Northampton, and a hampton typically is on water. And a water is called Lake Ontario. There it is. It's big. So Dick LaCroix, a born architect who was the architect of Town Hall, the original structure. Dick and we put together a team, town board authorized it, and we put a narrative study together. And our thought was, instead of Ladd and Long Pond just crossing and stripping up and down, as it will, let's do a massive circular, big, with what would we put inside? Ed Wegman said, we'll build a Wegmans, okay? I had commitments from a couple of churches. We'll put a church in there. We were going to put Town Hall in the center. Amen. In the center. And we designed pedestrian access, bicycle access, and all we needed was the state of New York and the county of Monroe to put the road plan in their designs, and they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it, and to this day it breaks my heart because and Wegmans held out as long as they could before they had to move forward, and once they moved forward, but I mean massive inside, acres and acres. So you'd go, oh, and Andy Wolf was going to put the Post newspaper offices in there. And we have some copies of it around, and it's well worth perusing. But that was the way to create the real center. And we're going to call it Northampton. And town of Greece, but Northampton was going to sort of hopefully be our new name. Pretty sexy, pretty hoo-ha, you know? The rents could go up. But we had a lot of fun planning. Gary Petkowski, if you don't know Gary, he is the reason for a lot of the great planning that we've done. Gary's retired. He's a terrific person, unflappable. We just have great folks. Jeff's inherited a really good batch of people.
Do you want to, you mentioned you try to get people's names that might want to help you.
Yeah, and
We turn it off.
oh, turn it on. B13. Anyone who wants to stay in contact, give me your email and or phone number. I'll certainly give you mine, and feel free, really. I set the alarm for 8 o'clock this morning, and it went off tonight. How about any questions? Jim, my brother, Jim Coddington. Yes.
Hey, Don, what was it like with you on the Holiday Inn fire? What was your role on that?
Whoa.
Boy.
The Holiday Inn fire, that certainly will be in the book. Personally, I have a tough time getting out of my head. Butch Volkmar, beloved chief, and I walked through the fire scene the next day and saw where the 9 people died in the same location. They drowned, and they inhaled the smoke, not from burns, and so they were within, from me to you, from getting down the back stairs. We don't know. We really don't know. There are rumors. I don't have any knowledge different than all the rumors flying around. But we pulled out the stops. We did not look at one person, 2 people, 3 people. We sent police all over the country where there was a similar fire and examined all of them. We went into the background of the owners of the Holiday Inn, deeper than the IRS. We brought in the chief arson investigator for New York City, John Stickevers. I picked him up at the airport. The other police officers and the other folks were busy. He said, "Don't tell me anything. Just take me to the scene." He was a great big guy with a black check. I thought it was a lumberjack, and it was this police officer. And he examined it, and we had, again, there's Gannett, good old Gannett. Gannett refused to believe that it was an arson. All right? One of the city inspectors had said something about Orex and something mixing together and causing, some stupid. And they ran with it. We couldn't convince them that this looks like what they call, Gene knows, a set fire. So Stick Evers did his examinations. He took a nip of wallpaper and this and that, went to the county labs. But we had Royal Canadian Mounted Police officers in here billeted, thanks to Ed Wegman. He emptied his motel and was filled with police. Instead of making calls there, they were sleeping there. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police sent in teams, and I saw on a table photographs. This is now 1978, photographs of bad guys who had crossed the border, the Canadian border. They were getting photos in 1978. But we sent people everywhere. There was a scintilla of a similar instance. We wanted the DA, we being Jerry, myself, and the others, we wanted the DA to take it to a grand jury, and he wouldn't do it. And he may have been right. Maybe we didn't have enough, but we wanted a grand jury. Raise your right hand. My left hand. Spencer, did you raise your right hand or your left hand?
Right hand.
All right. And he wouldn't do it. Some of the stuff that has flown around since the web is out there now it can be cruel because it gives people some sense of hope. And, you know, I get caught up watching those crime shows like the rest of us when there's nothing else on. And you always know what's gonna come out. American greed, you know. But this was pretty tough stuff. And I know the firefighters and the police, you know, it's hard. It's very, very hard. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
What are you most proud of during your time as supervisor? Or what would you want to be remembered for?
Not being indicted. Serving. I couldn't believe. I grew up in the town. I worked in the highway department. My dad was on the town board. When Gordon Howe came in to see me to talk about something, I felt we should change places. Like I was sitting at his desk. I mean, what a joy it was. The kids, our kids, one time some guy, we passed an ordinance, weeds and brush. You had to cut your lawn, hopefully. So Reeve and I were out at any number of things, and some guy shows up at our door with weeds, knocks on the door and scares the snot out of the kids. The kids were little at the time. So I go over to his house with the weeds and said, "Don't you ever come near my house when the kids are home alone, ever." I'll come. It really was. I'm old enough and I'm not running for anything. It was an honor to serve. I just ran out of gas. I was there 17 years and I really didn't have the spark that I thought I should have. Also, sooner or later, a faster gun comes to town. And I wanted a good batting average. But I also thought it'd be good to get in the private sector at 42 instead of maybe 52. I don't know how, although Congress is different, but you don't have many mayors or supervisors that stay over 20 years because it's a grind. I'd have folks call up and say, from Kodak, and I love Kodak. Who didn't love? Who served at Kodak? Who worked at Kodak? Yeah. When you call with a problem, you already have the problem designed, and you want it done this way. But I had a lot of great meetings with people on their way home from work. I used to take appointments on the way into work. Can you meet me at your house, 7:30? I'll tell once. Reva gets upset when I tell these stories. But so this guy calls me one day. He says, "Can you come down to see me in an unmarked car?" Sure. Gave me his address. He said, "I have a neighbor from." I said, "Okay." Jerry happened to be in the office, the chief. I said, "Come on, go in for a ride." He has an unmarked car. Let's go. We go down there. We pull in the guy's driveway, and I see the curtains going this by the garage. And he says, so in we go. I let Jerry go in first if it was traffic. So I said, "What's the problem?" He says, "Well, the guy's got a black eye." He said, "Well, I did something really bad and I need to know if I'm in trouble." I said, "Well, what'd you do?" He said, "Well, my neighbor's dog was pooping on my lawn. And I got tired of it, so I put it in a bag and then put it in his mailbox." And he came out and punched me. I said, do you want to charge him or do you want me to charge you? I don't know, but please don't do. Oh, and the funny part was, he said, his neighbor's dog had died 2 weeks earlier. So it wasn't even that guy's dog poop. I did have anonymous communications with some wives who didn't want their husband to know that they were complaining about their neighbor. So I did play a little bit with, okay, we'll send an unmarked envelope to your. We did have to remind people over the years, you can't write nasty notes when you send in your guilty plea. Yeah, we'll get you a knock on the door. But for the most part, we had wonderful men and women. We had the first suburban female police officer. Yeah, Shirley Hahn. And she was all business and a wonderful representative. How many employees? Do you know how many employees you currently have, Dave? Do you know how many employees you currently have? How many employees we have?
For total, I'm not sure.
Pardon me?
I'm not sure for total.
Well, get back to us. The town of Greece does work for other towns that the county pays for, but not as much. We have so much. I remember we had 70 miles of roads, but that could be dramatically increased. I've been gone for 37 years, and I know when I'm driving through the city in the winter, I know when I'm in Greece. Right? Immediately. You have a wonderful historical society. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Want to subscribe to the Greece Historical Society on YouTube? Then click that subscribe button below. Click on that bell icon to get notified when there's new content available from the Greece Historical Society.
You can visit us on the web at GreeceHistoricalSociety.org. You can find us on Facebook at Greece Historical Society, and you can stop in at the Greece Historical Society at 595 Long Pond Road.